Everyone has a story to tell. They're just looking for someone who wants to hear it. We assume no one wants to listen, and because we already know our own story so well, it gets a little boring to our own ears. We start to believe that our life experiences are pretty much the same as everyone else's, that our stories aren't worth sharing, that they're not interesting. But they are, and it's my goal to prove it to you. My name is Chris Beatty, and these are Interesting People. Today's guest is the guy who explained to me how writing a book works. Until recently, he was the managing partner of Fruitful Design and Strategy, and is now going off on his own to start Lulla Consulting. He wrote a novel about grief called The Caring House and travels the country telling people how story structure can be used to sharpen your message and solve pretty much any of the world's problems. Joining you from my basement, introducing Raj Lulla. Should we share it on air? Is it appropriate? It could be inappropriate. It's just whether
only embarrassing.
It's just whether or not I market to my crowd that likes the E or not. It's like I think I've done 4 of these, and I'm pretty sure the only podcast so far that got an explicit rating was the one with Ben. He was quick to point out it was my fault, not his, but you know.
That's true. That's true.
So Raj, when was the time you felt like a loser?
Oh, we're just starting it?
Well, sure. I don't have any.
Okay.
This isn't a professional.
Were you even recording?
Thing. I think so. I don't know. Yeah, it's red.
That's
that means
good.
Recording.
Okay. Do you want to go again?
No, this is the what was the podcast where they just like the intro is just them like messing up Radio Lab. Yeah. What makes you interesting, Raj? Or do you want to would you rather do an interesting question or a loser question? What's the best way to kick off your story?
Let's start with loser for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So when did I feel like a loser? When I was 16, I had a crush on a girl at church, and we were kind of crossed paths at the exact same time. I was leaving to go somewhere, and she was downstairs where they have like the child care area. So she came up the stairs right as I was exiting, and just like when somebody just appears and you didn't expect them to, then especially when you have like all the high school like crush feelings or whatever. I
wouldn't know what that's like.
Didn't write a whole book on it or anything.
Can't relate to this story at all.
So she comes upstairs, and I just like totally caught off guard by what to say. And she's carrying this kid. Somebody's kid was probably like crying or whatever downstairs. She's carrying this kid, and so I just go, "That's a good look on you." Not realizing that I was implying that I wanted her to have my babies or something. And what made it even worse was she goes, "What?" And I repeated it because it was like, what sounds like that's a good look on you that would make any sense in this moment. So, yeah.
Was the baby like Indian, like half brown?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, so maybe there has some plausible deniability there.
Sure, yeah.
Those like Christian crush encounters, like, I mean, yeah, I wrote a whole book on it, but like they are just so great. I mean, in a terrible way. I remember going to a Campus Crusade like conference in college, and there's a guy, he's actually the MC he's a pastor in Omaha now, but at this time he's just like the MC of this big conference in Denver. And there's, I don't know how many, maybe 1,000 kids, college kids there. And so like one of his like little shticks, like his funny I'm the MC, I'm the funny guy thing was he talked about like if you had a crush on your conference crush came into the elevator in the hotel and you had farted, you needed a code word so that way they knew not to walk into your fart. So he told everyone to say it's a hot box in here, and the whole premise being that one hot girl that's in your youth group is here with you. You don't want her to walk into there. You just go, "Hey, hot box here," and that like his whole theory was that would save your relationship with.
Yeah, one of my favorite like guilty pleasures in this world is seeing a pastor, because I came up in that world, seeing a pastor speak in front of an audience that's not his, and you never realize how much people are laughing because of the relationship rather than it not actually being funny. And I love to watch those people bomb, because it's just like, this is a dose of humility that you absolutely needed in order to do your job well into the future. And so it's such a gift to you to bomb right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think about that just in the church that I've been going to. I'm like, why are we laughing at this guy? He's not funny at all. But it's just, you're right. It's people that, I mean, it's a supportive crowd and what, in your own church. But like one of my favorite things was to try to get those pastors that same exact person, but like outside the context of the pulpit, and try to make them like react to different scenarios. So a pastor that we both know, I just have like 3 or 4 times where I tried to do that. One time I went up to him and said like, "Hey, I really like your style," because he was wearing a sports coat with jeans. I said, it's kind of like a reverse mullet. Like instead of business on the front, party in the back, your business up top, party in the bottom. And he just went, "Indeed." Same guy. Might have actually been the same day. We went into this public restaurant. He was doing a speaking engagement. It wasn't at church, but it was like he was the keynote speaker for this conference thing I was going, a different conference, not the fart in the elevator one.
Aren't they all the fart in the elevator?
This, I don't think they had elevators in this place. Otherwise, farts somewhere. Definitely some farts in that room. But the other awkward thing for me is when people have conversations at the urinal. And there was it was that bathroom thing where we walk in. The only 2 people in the bathroom are me and him. And I know him, but I don't know him, right? Like I had the pastoral relationship with this guy where like I'm supposed to respect him and everything, but we weren't actually friends, even though he was kind of supposed to be my friend, but he wasn't. So he finishes up using the urinal. I didn't do the side-by-side urinal thing because that's really uncomfortable having that conversation. But I walk away from my urinal, experience, and he's still washing his hands. And I go, "Hey, I got a serious question for you." And he goes, "Ha ha ha." Did his awkward laugh. And I go, "Are those pubic hairs on the top of the urinal?" He goes, "Dude, that's gross." And then he walked out and then gave his keynote speech. So I don't know what head frame he was in, but he definitely got asked by one of the people in his church about pubic hair right before he gave whatever the topic was.
Also, got to make you wonder what kind of gymnastics people are doing to achieve the top of the urinal.
Yeah, well, that was it. I would have a whole conversation. I mean, he's a very smart guy. I thought he might have an answer for how does this actually happen. Like, I don't have that problem. Like, how do you lose that amount of hair, and how tall are you? And it just, there's a whole physics problem involved that it's just never made sense to me. I thought this guy can enlighten me, but he can only enlighten me on other things, I guess.
He sticks to his lane.
Yeah, I guess not. Friendship toilet banter, I guess. It's exegeting Leviticus.
Did you ever play that game in probably around high school, so early 2000s? There was like a flash game that you could play where you had to pick the right urinal to stand at, and if you picked the wrong one, you'd literally be murdered in the bathroom.
No, but I feel like this is a game that I need to.
Oh yeah,
I need to find.
I was at the movie theater yesterday. Went to the bathroom, and 2 guys came in, 2 older gentlemen, who completely failed. Like they would have not survived the game. I was at urinal 3 out of 4. And then they came in and flanked me.
Oh, no.
Both of them.
Come on.
I was like, come on.
Yeah.
At least the first guy comes in, you go, "Oh, I should go 2 down." And then the other guy has an uncomfortable decision, which then the end is the correct one. Because it's like, yeah, I have to have 1 neighbor, but I don't have to have 2 neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
But no, these guys are just like, no, we're going to party together. I have a photo of the bathroom in... it's the Runza in it may be Grand Island, but it's somewhere west of here anyway.
Okay, Grand Island, we'll claim it. We want it.
And so it's the bathroom in a Runza where there are urinals at right angles to each other.
My kid's school is like that. The elementary school that my kids go is like that. I always want to take a picture, and then I think I should probably not take a picture in a kid's elementary school toilet.
Yeah, no, but the idea that nobody thought, I'll bet people don't want to brush butts while going to the bathroom. No, there was nobody in the architecture design office who was like, we probably should reconsider this.
Yeah, like my kid's school is like that. It's like it's a weird shape. The whole bathroom's like this octagonal shape with a lot of just edges and stuff. But it was clearly somebody, like whoever it was, said, we just got to get as many of these things in there as we can. We got a lot of kids to push through here. They don't know all the rules yet.
Let's be honest, they're going to barely hit it anyway. So this seems like the most appropriate intro to this conversation.
I think so. Well, my follow-up question is, what makes you interesting? So I think that we have a good lead into that.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about this in preparation for this, which is funny, like having to prepare why I'm interesting. But I feel like I forget a lot of the things that I do, and I'm always looking for like the next thing will be the most interesting thing I do. But a few I came up with is I've probably seen The West Wing more times than anybody that you know.
Wow. My wife and I are literally working through the first time as we speak. We're on season, what's the last season? 7?
Yeah.
7. So we're like season 7, episode 12, like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Like right in the middle of spoiler alert, the re-election, or not the election after.
Not that much of a spoiler because
as of now, it's still a 2-term presidency, but we got a guy in office that might challenge that.
I've seen it probably close to 30 times. Like the entire all 7 seasons. Yeah, like I fell in love with it when I was in college. Here they used to play it after. It was like after Saturday Night Live, maybe.
Okay.
And so, do you remember there would be like those really crappy reality shows? There'd be like Cheaters.
Yeah.
And then there was was it Blind Date? They would like go on these dates, and then the guy would be like, I was kind of into it. She was hot, whatever. And she was like, total loser. Get him away from me. I don't want to.
Well, I watched a lot of the MTV versions of those where it was like that, but they're all on a bus and they
oh yes,
and they're all lesbians or whatever, like and they have like weird challenges, like they have to get their armpits waxed, and the girl's like, nope, pass, and they get to the next guy on the bus. Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. So they would show this show, The West Wing, after that, and I had a horrible insomnia when I was that age, and so I would just stay up and watch it. And there was one week where the show started with, it was this scene from like the 20s maybe, where it was, maybe 1940s, where it looked like a movie. And it's totally 1940s set. These guys are speaking in Yiddish. I was like, oh, they're not showing the West Wing.
Okay, yeah,
tonight.
I know the episode, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, they're not showing the West Wing tonight. And then it turned out it was the cold open for the West Wing for that episode. And I was like, holy cow, this show is more ambitious than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so then I went out, bought the DVDs, and used all of my like intern job money to buy all 7 seasons eventually. And so I've seen it literally probably more times than anybody else.
Well, I just bought the entire West Wing DVD collection at the Omaha Library book sale.
Excellent.
So I'm sure I think it was $2 a season. So, they're in great shape.
Spent more than you, but
that was me for The Office. My show like that was The Office when I was in college. Every year that I was in college, whatever that season was when the box set came out, I would go and I'd get it the day it came out. And it was a huge extravagance for me at the time. Like they were probably $40 or something, but it was like, that was all my disposable income I had. And then that was my, I don't want to say coping mechanism, but that was like my escape. I was never a video game guy. I'm a reader now, but in college I really didn't read a lot. But I would just watch The Office, and I would buy the DVD of whatever one came out, watch it, from the first to last episode. And then I'd watch that, and then I would restart at the beginning of the series and once I finished. So it's like if season 5 just came out, I'd buy the DVD set, watch all of season 5, and then restart back at season 1, just keep going. So it's interesting you say that about the West Wing, because I knew you were into it, but there's been moments now watching it for the first time. There's been a couple of times I've looked at your text message and be like, oh, that's a West Wing reference. I wouldn't get that until just now.
Yeah. It's so internal now that I probably wouldn't know if I was making a reference. I have that for Scrubs too. I'm taking my kids through it right now, and I have not realized how many moments in parenting, especially from Dr. Cox, where he does this wrong. It's the perfect like meme show for parenting.
Well, that was for The Office, especially for me. It was like when I went and started doing like an actual 9-to-5 job, and I had a Michael Scott for a boss. That's part of the brilliance of shows like that, is when I watched it before I was in an office environment. I thought it was funny just because it was good writing. And then you live it and you realize like this is actually based off of like people empathizing with whatever the scenario is. You're like, this is brilliant, And I had so many Michael Scott moments of just like, this is season 4, episode 2 right now is what I'm living today,
Which is funny because I feel like some of those shows you're laughing at, like some of the scenes in The Office, you're like, wow, wouldn't it be crazy if somebody was this obtuse? And then you live it.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way about The Big Bang Theory, where having grown up a nerd by far, other people watch it and they're like, haha, they're so nerdy. Imagine being like that. And I'm like, haha, I get that reference.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings. I didn't watch as much of the Big Bang Theory, but I remember it was popular. I went to an engineering dorm in college, so we'd always like some of it was almost not offensive to us, but we're like,
Oh yeah.
but I mean, maybe at times we're like, I had a friend that always called it. It was a show about nerds, not for nerds.
Yes. It was like this almost kind of like fish out of water, except for the audience is the fish out of water.
Yeah.
You know, where they're like, oh, we're gonna like plunge you deep into this nerd culture, and everybody from the nerd culture is like, what's funny about
Yeah,
this show?
like I remember there's a scene where I was taking it was a reference to computer code, and he was talking about like how to I don't even remember what the Sheldon was trying to problem solve something, probably like how to get a date or something,
Yeah.
you know, some social interaction, and he whiteboarded it and he put in like a reference to some computer code. I think it was like you put a numerical counter in it to how many times it goes through, and he just programmed it like a computer language. And I remember like taking a computer programming class at that time. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, okay, yeah, I can see how he's working that through.
So what's funny is I just watched a little short documentary about this where that was actually the second time they tried to do the show. The first time they didn't have Kaylee Cuoco as Penny,
Okay.
and the Sheldon and Leonard were more like creepy. They're like a little more pervy,
Sure.
and then the girl, her name wasn't even Penny. I don't remember what it was, but she was like mean to them all the time.
Okay.
And what they found was the audience just hated the like popular girl picking on the nerds.
Yeah.
It did not work for them at all.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the rare times where a studio has sent it back and said, try again. Normally it's just like, it's not for us. We don't want it.
Mhm.
And they went back and tried again. They recast it. They rewrote the pilot, all that. And it ended up being a show. But yeah, I mean, kind of that instinct of you can't be mean to the nerds
Yeah.
because we recognize that their innocence is something to be protected, not to be exploited for humor.
Yeah. Well, and it's that you always punch up, don't punch down, kind of.
Yep.
What I love about that is that, and I don't know if this was part of the recast or not. I love that the nice girl that's kind of got the hots for the nerds that is a Nebraskan. Like that's my favorite part of the whole show. It's like who's the nicest person? And like I said, I didn't watch much of the show, but she has her own fish out of water experience by wanting to be an actress or something from Nebraska, and it's just that's the good person that finds love with or whatever it is, or relationships or whatever, camaraderie with these other weirdos. And like I look at that and say, like, of course she's from Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, what's funny about that is, so I lived in Southern California, I think when the show came out. And so I was a Nebraskan living in Southern California. I was also a nerd, am still a nerd, but at the time. And so both sides of the show made sense to me.
Sure.
Like this Southern California culture that was, I was definitely experiencing some culture shock with. And the nerd side of just being like, oh, how would normal people kind of deal with this situation? And so that was kind of cathartic for me to see both sides of it.
Yeah, I bet. I've only visited California, but I had one friend that like he was from Nebraska. He went and lived in San Francisco for a summer, and it was a total fish out of water. And San Francisco is different in LA, but it was definitely somewhere like he walked towards like I just don't get these people. Like it's like living in a in a spaceship. It's just so different.
Weirdly, the thing that stands out to me of the greatest cultural incompatibility that I picked up on there was that real estate signs in the city we lived in was Riverside, California, just outside of LA. People would tag them with like graffiti and like real estate signs. It's in
Weird,
somebody's
yeah.
yard for like a week,
Uh-huh.
and people would tag them. Whereas here, there's like, so much, so is your lawn overgrown or whatever? There's like so much propriety and there's so much, respect for each other's property to the point where if somebody doesn't respect their own property, it's an offense to you somehow in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And there was just something about the mindset of the young people there that was like, oh, that sign's mine to tag. And I was like, oh, like I can't even imagine growing up that way. Now,
Yeah.
part of it's religious, part of it's like all sorts of other things of not wanting to get in trouble and all that. But
Yeah.
I was just like, what's the value of even tagging something so impermanent?
Yeah.
Like it did not compute at all for me.
Yeah.
Like why it was the way it was.
Well, so I guess that's a good lead into just like your own origin story. So you grew up in Nebraska. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in the Midwest. Yeah. In Nebraska. I was born in Kansas City, grew up my whole childhood in Nebraska.
Okay, are you a second generation American? Were your parents from India? I'm trying to.
I forget how to calculate it because my dad's from India, my mom is from the U.S.
Okay,
and so I don't know what number. That
I don't know either. We need,
one and a half,
we need
two
the
and a half,
Big Bang Theory equation to map that out. Yeah.
Although my mom's dad was from Wales, and so I'm actually a quarter Welsh, which is like hilarious looking at me. But yeah, half Indian, quarter Welsh, and then the rest some English, Germanic, whatever.
So you're the Indian. Is that all on your dad's side?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so he came from India.
Yep.
To Kansas City, or
he came from. He's just like Ben. My dad's story is much more interesting than mine. But
that's the thing. I don't know your guys' dads, so that's season 2.
We should just have a dad's podcast. Yeah.
That's what it should be. Interesting dads.
Yeah.
My dad's not that interesting, but I don't really. I guess I never sat down and interviewed him.
So my dad, his family, and I don't know if it's a virtue of having already left what's now Pakistan. They lived in that area before the partition, which is when Pakistan and India split after British reign ended, and so his family lived in that area but was Hindu, and so it's basically this very broad simplification of it. But
so he lived in Pakistan, but he was Hindu, right? So the Pakistan were traditionally Muslim, and now it's part of the cultural divide, right? That
in
broad brush,
yeah. So it was a lot of like Muslims were going to Pakistan same time that Hindus were going down to India to like to have things separate, and so his family had already moved down, or was moved down to India as part of the partition, and so I don't know if it's because of that or if they were always this way. I think they were probably a little bit more enlightened even when they were in Pakistan. My great grandmother was a medicine woman, which would be not a super traditional role for women over there, and so always kind of a little bit progressive, and they very much encouraged people to travel. The family to travel outside the country, to settle in America if they wanted to, whatever. And so my dad left India, I think when he was 20, moved to Hong Kong, not knowing a word of Mandarin or Cantonese, learns the local language, gets involved in textile trade, and ends up eventually becoming a buyer for U.S. department stores like Macy's, those types of places, of fabrics and those types of things. And so he would travel between Hong Kong, San Francisco, and New York. And then he, when he decided to come to America, ended up settling in New York first. Classic immigrant story. He had $100 in his pocket, not, $10. But other than that, not really sure what he was going to do. Ends up meeting somebody on the streets of New York that he knew from India, gets a job, and then other than having to leave the country for visa purposes and renewals, all that, but was in the U.S. after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how did he meet your mom then?
Yeah. So my dad, through this department store relationship stuff, ends up in Des Moines, Iowa, of all places. And my dad's a great salesman, so they have him selling suits in the Des Moines Brandeis, which is now part of the, I think, Macy's and Yonkers kind of family.
Fancy department store,
Yeah, he's selling suits. He's kind of known to be the guy who, like, if somebody comes in to buy a pair of socks, they'll leave with 3 suits.
Okay.
And then my mom was a seamstress in the tailor shop there, and they got set up on a blind date and ended up getting married. I think it was like 6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have a brother and a sister?
I've got 3 siblings, so 2 older sisters and a younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then you guys grew up, from there eventually moved to Omaha, grew up and what was like one of the questions I wrote down is, what was it like when people talked about cowboys and Indians growing up? Because you were definitely like, I think we're a little more politically, I don't know if correct's even the right term, but socially conscious about what a Native American and Indian is now. But I definitely, I remember having that conversation. Wait, there's an actual India?
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably one of my least favorite things about the world that we live in. Because even like, they're government agencies, I believe, still called like Bureau of Indian Affairs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we change that at this point? It's also interesting because I have Native friends who don't mind the word Indian. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I do, not because I don't want to be associated with them, but just because I hate the idea that, Columbus or whoever comes over and was like, they're brown, they're probably Indian, right?
Yeah.
And it's to me just the generational racism
Yeah.
that is. Like, we really should retire this
Yeah.
and call people by whatever their actual descriptor is that they want. Most people I've talked to have said that their tribe is what they want to be referred to, which is why probably most Americans are like, oh, I can't be bothered.
It was like, I don't know how many what those are. And even some of those tribes are like Sioux Indians. I always read something somewhere like the term Sioux was actually not the name of the tribe. It was like their rivals called them that.
Yeah.
And it was actually like a derogatory term, like snake people or something like that's just what they referred to them. But the French settlers, and maybe this is all apocryphal, I don't know. But like the French settlers asked, who are they? And they said the whatever in their language sounded like Sioux. And they went, okay, we'll call them the Sioux. Put a French spelling on it. That's why it's OUX. And then they're like, now you're the Sioux. Just like even some of those tribal names, and I'm sure some of them are exactly what they want to be called. But I could see as a white person being like, yeah, it's hard for me to, like, I don't know. Right.
I mean, I find that fascinating with countries too, where it's like, why did we decide to call Spain instead of España?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard to say.
No.
There's this, it's like, oh, we have to create our own version of that.
Yeah.
And when you realize how many countries in the world we're not actually calling by the name that they call their own country.
Yeah.
It's like, we could fix this. There's actually no real reason we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's funny that I started with, I've seen The West Wing a bunch of times, and that's the interesting thing about me, because there are so many weird stories in my background, being a half Indian kid growing up in Nebraska. In my high school, I was literally one of 2% of our entire school population that was non-white.
Oh.
And my senior year, I got blacklisted from having any more photos taken of me for the yearbook because, in part because I graduated the same year that 9/11 happened. And so the inside cover of that yearbook is a picture of the most diverse group of people they could find, kind of gathering and reflectively looking at the half-staff flag from 9/11. And I was just, so there were so many photos of me in that yearbook that the journalism teacher was finally like, you can't take any more photos of me. But
he's not even Middle Eastern.
I think it's fourth grade. You do Pioneer Day here, or you study Nebraska history or whatever.
Yeah, we go to the state capitol, and
yeah, and so many young men in my class all had cowboy hats and whatever, and so it's like, you come as a cowboy. And I didn't have a cowboy hat. I had no reason to have a cowboy hat.
Yep.
And so I went as a Chinese railroad worker.
I was gonna say, did you come as an Indian?
I kid you not. My friend Steven, he had one of those Chinese hats. I wish I knew the name of it, but with the point at the top.
Yeah, and I can picture it, like the triangle, like the rice worker patty.
And so I came as a Chinese railroad worker for Pioneer Day. And I really wasn't trying to troll them. It was just like, this feels like the closest I can get to like what I would have been in this time.
I was a minority then, and I guess this is what minorities were.
Yeah. Which I would say a lot of my story ends up being that kind of being a theme here, where, growing up in the church and being like half Indian and half white, for lack of a better term, it kind of defines a lot of those relationships. Like I was, a lot of the girls I had crushes on. I remember there was this girl I had a crush on in high school where, do you remember back in Nebraska, back in the day, especially right after the Huskers won the championships, the most popular car in the state was a red Ford F-150.
Sure, yeah.
And so I had a crush on this girl, and just like could not understand why I wasn't getting any traction there, And I ended up realizing years later that her dad was this guy who drove a Ford, red Ford F-150, would take her fishing on the weekends, that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, my dad is a vegetarian Hindu, and so we've never been fishing together. And, some guy from church who taught me how to fish, and I still hate it.
Yeah.
And just realizing like, oh, I was never the picture of masculinity to her.
Sure.
I was never, when she imagined herself growing up and what do we do on the weekends and for vacations, all that kind of stuff. It didn't compute for her at all. And, but I was pretty naive to all of that. Like there were these little stories like the Chinese railroad worker and that kind of stuff where I was aware of it, but to me it almost seemed like a footnote or side note.
Yeah. Well, imagine, I mean, you're married to a white woman, right?
Yeah.
Like your kids, I mean, look white and these.
Yeah. White passing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, culturally, like there's,
Yeah.
lived culturally, in a very, about, one of the most Caucasian states in the, in the country. And I think about like my own kids. So my kids are all adopted from Colombia. They're all Latino. They're all very much brown Latinos, but like there was this, we went to a UNO basketball game or like a UNO event. And the UNO basketball team was there signing autographs, and they're typical basketball team, right? Really, really tall black guys, way shorter white guys. And then I remember talking to my daughter, like you could tell like she thought one of the guys was really cute. But I was just fascinated because we had all this, like in the basketball team, you had white guys, black guys, probably, other races, but mainly, white guys and black guys. And just saying like, which one do you think's cute? And just asking her. And it was like the whitest of the white boy band version, and it's just like, that was, as a Latino woman, like that was her definition of, attractive male. But it's just fascinating to me as like somebody, like how you view whatever is beautiful or ideal or whatever. It's so socially construed as much as anything,
Well, yeah, I mean, to that point, growing up, you get these icebreaker questions, right? Like, who would play you in the movie version of your life? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I literally could not name one Indian actor.
Sure.
Up to that point. In fact, I don't think it was until the movie Yesterday, it was probably 2017, something like that,
okay,
that Himesh Patel plays the lead in that movie. This is a movie about where some event happens and everybody forgets about the Beatles. Like the Beatles,
yeah.
And that movie was the first movie that I could, like, wide release movie that I could remember with an Indian lead in an English movie, not a Bollywood movie, that gets the girl. I mean, spoiler, 17 years, or 9 years later, or whatever. But where the guy gets the girl, and he's not a accented side character or anything like that. But all the time growing up, who would play you in the movie or version of your life? I only really had black actors to look at, because it's like, well, it's obviously not going to be Brad Pitt, So it's like, who else do I have to choose from? And so, I mean, things have changed a lot since we were growing up.
And even that was a step. I mean, I remember watching, my wife and I watched every single Best Picture winner. Like that was one of our COVID things. And it was fascinating to see about, like, the biggest thing I can think of is like that changed over eras was how we treated race.
Yeah.
And whatever it was, the Best Picture of, 1930 something, I don't know the exact year, but it was Around the World in 80 Days. And they had an Indian character in blackface. It was a white actor in actress, I can't remember what the character was, in blackface. Yeah. And it was just like, paint this white person's face black, and now they're Indian, right? Yeah.
I loved Breakfast at Tiffany's growing up, but like Mickey Rooney's character, of the landlord, is so racist. He's like he plays this Asian character. I don't even know if he's specifically any kind of Asian, just like
just not
eyes and weird accent and that kind of thing. And just how it's like totally fine. Nobody's like, oh, we probably shouldn't show this.
You're not that into sports, but your brother,
yes.
If anybody knows who your brother is in Omaha, Ravi Lulla, just does the morning show with Damon Benning, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, he's super into sports, and I think he said one time, like, other than the Michael Jordan era Chicago Bulls, like that was like your one brief with like interest in pop culture, sports fandom, and other than that, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a Notre Dame football fan, which would probably get me, filleted here in Nebraska. But, and then, I loved the Michael Jordan era Bulls. But other than that, I mean, I was in choir. I did, art kind of stuff. My brother, he was type 1 diabetic growing up. And sports was a way of having control over his body.
Okay.
When nothing else, he didn't have control over anything else. And I think there's a little bit of an FU about, like, if I can make it to the highest level of sports, then I've mastered this thing that kind of threatens me.
Sure.
And he did well. He worked harder than anybody else, blew out shoulders, ankles, everything in pursuit of it. And then he also, all the kids in my family are very intelligent. And so Ravi's got that like almost beautiful mind type thing for like sports stats
Yeah.
and everything. I mean, like there's literally nothing I can mention to him where it's like, oh, have you heard about this? And that he doesn't not only know about, but then also have some deep lore about, why that actually happened and what the deal was behind the scenes and all these
Yeah.
things. And so yeah, sports was not really. I enjoyed it. It's funny because with somebody who's so prominent locally, relatively, compared to me, especially in the issue of sports, I look like the artsy fartsy brother. I would say I'm relatively average for an American male. I don't know, like probably slightly less because I mean I hate small talk in general.
Yeah.
And did you catch the game last night? I was like, I mean, we can if you want to. I don't really care if something particularly interesting happens, but
It is funny that like the Ravi Raj Lula thing. Like it took me
yeah,
forever. I listened to your brother when I used to listen to 1620 when he would do like guest spots, before he had his full time show. And I think I probably listened to that show, like the 1620 the Zone shows. I probably listened to in my car. I don't know, 5 or 6 years before I finally made the connection. That it was
oh
your
yeah,
brother.
yep.
And you and I weren't as close back then. I knew who you were just because I was friends with Ben. But I think it was literally one day where Ravi, your brother, was saying something about like somebody asked it about like his siblings, and he's just
Oh
like, yeah, we got, I got, and he started listing off everyone's like Raj, and I'm like, wait, Raj Lula? Oh, and then just the other day, like probably a week ago, my wife made a comment like, I think it was we were talking about how you and Ben, and we can talk about this more, at some point too, how you and Ben decided to go off and kind of separate the business. You're not focusing, doing some more of your consulting work. Ben's kind of focusing a little bit more on the graphic design side. And I think we're just talking about that. We're like, yeah, they're changing things up a little bit. It's exciting. And then she said, yeah, and I saw Raj is like doing stuff on like radio now. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, no, he like had a like top 10 breakfast spots in Omaha like video on Instagram. Like, I think that was his brother. Like, no, it was like R.A. Lulla. I'm like, yeah, Ravi Lula. It's like, they look just like him though. I'm like, yeah, they look the same. Like, and then she finally pulled it and was like, oh, damn it.
I think it's probably slightly better looking, but yeah, I didn't realize, Facebook came out when we were in college, and I didn't realize how many of the @rlula domains I was taking up before my brother could get to them. And I don't think he might forgive me for that eventually. But.
That's I guess that's the role of the little brother, though.
Well, I mean, he's certainly getting payback. I was at the Apple Store a couple of years ago, and I believe they're trained to kind of chat you up and find some point of commonality with you. I had a wild one before that where I met a guy, a friend of mine named Toby, and he was, Fruitful, my former company that I'm just recently out of, that was partners with Ben, is fairly well known locally. Yeah. And so you go to the Apple Store, you're buying a computer or whatever. Oh, what do you do? Graphic design. Oh, what's your company name? Fruitful. They could have seen us in, our Big Omaha sponsorship or in, did we sponsor Big Omaha? I don't want to misstate, but in some kind of sponsorship or Midlands Business Journal or like any, we've been featured before in different places. And so people often say things, but this guy Toby, he's like, oh, I've heard of Fruitful, and he's got this African accent, and it's like, oh yeah, he goes, yeah, back when I was in Nigeria, I was a photographer, and you guys did a like how to make money as a photographer infographic that I saw on Pinterest, and there's like the one thing that Fruitful's ever done that went like really viral around the world.
Wow,
it was for a client, and I was like, oh no, like legit, this guy had been following us since he was in Nigeria.
That's crazy.
We're friends now. Like we exchange numbers and everything, and he's a great guy. But anyway, so they chat you up when you come to the Apple Store. A couple of years later, I'm in the Apple Store, and I have a gal who's helping me. She's Indian, and so easy point of contact. We all we do this a lot with other Indian people, where it's like, oh, where's your family from?
Sure,
and so you try to figure out if you have ties. My uncle ran a school before he died. Ran a school in India that so India's got a great educational system, but at least at the time, I don't know what it's like now. There wasn't much remedial teaching, and there wasn't much gifted teaching.
Okay.
And so my uncle's school would kind of take on both.
Okay.
And so it was like before and after school stuff to help people who wanted to get the highest of the high test scores and the people who needed help catching up. And it was well respected. I mean, like people who wouldn't make that kind of same kind of association, like Ravi and Raj, like if they realize Lulla classes and my family, I've been in airports around the world where people have stopped our family and been like, "Are you like Lulla?" And
Oh,
then
wow.
yeah, these stories. So this lady's chatting me up. She's like, "Yeah, where's your family from? Whatever." And so we're talking through that, and this guy comes over to deliver. I was buying something, and he goes, "Oh, you need help setting it up or anything?" I was, "No, I'm good." And he was like, "Lulla, are you Ravi Lulla's brother?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "The Ravi Lulla?" I was like, "Oh, come on!" Like, he doesn't need that.
Yeah, he's not the anything.
It'll inflate his head. Don't do that.
All right, so you grew up in Nebraska, then you eventually became was it a pastor? Is that what you went to California for?
Yeah. So it's such an interesting part of my story. We, so like I said, that kind of like Indian/white dynamic in my life. We went to this church that I would now describe as fundamentalist.
Okay.
They would still not describe themselves that way, but very, like originalists in the Constitution, very,
Yep.
if it's not in the text, it's not what it meant kind of thing. And so it was that kind of church. And there was all this, God needs more workers for the field and kind of that whole thing. And so I grew up believing that was kind of the highest calling you can have in your life. And I think I was really hungry to belong,
Yeah.
And being devoted was a way that you could receive accolades. And I didn't do it for that reason, but it's just such a self-reinforcing loop,
Yeah.
where you step out in faith a little bit and you get really praised for it. And then so you do a little more, And so I end up at a small Bible college. The only person in my life who really questioned that decision was my high school guidance counselor, Bev Johnson. She was awesome. And
shout out to Bev if you're
Yeah.
listening. Big fan of the show.
She noticed that I got I was in the top 99th percentile on my ACTs. And I was going to this Bible college of 190 students to become a pastor. And she was like, "Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got a lot of options. AP classes, all that kind of stuff." I started college with something like 12 credits of university credits through the AP stuff and good grades, high ACT scores, all that. And I was like, "Yeah, no, I feel called. Like, this is what I want to do."
Yeah.
And not only was it to go into ministry and like study at a Christian university or college, but a very specific, very narrow one that can only recruit 200 students because it's so specific. It's not denominational. It's, so it's not like you can go become a nurse there or anything. It's like, it's specifically go be a preacher, go be a pastor. And that's what I felt called to do.
Yeah.
And so I went and I studied. I hated it. I mean, people talk about the college being the best years of your life. I did not meet my people in college.
Sure.
There are a lot of dynamics that I can describe now, but wouldn't have been able to describe then. I had basically zero social life in college. I started driving back to Omaha every weekend to work at churches, and
Driving back from
Norfolk. It was
okay.
It was Norfolk at the time. It moved down to the Omaha area before
Okay.
it closed. But it's always nice to be from a college that doesn't exist anymore. But I feel like that means I can invent things about my degree, but I don't think that's probably true. But yeah, so I would drive back and work at churches here. So I don't have memories of like hanging out with people on the weekends for the most part. A little bit my freshman year because I didn't have a car, but after that, it was just I was really focused on getting out into the world.
Yeah. I can't relate exactly to that. I mean, I went to engineering school, but I remember like even talking to a guy at coming out of college that was at Campus Crusade, and we had a whole conversation about like should you go on staff with Campus Crusade, and I think what he told me, and I'm very thankful for him saying that. He goes, I should probably try to talk you into going on his staff because I think you'd be great at it, but dude, just go make money. And I'm so thankful because if the relationship that I had with this guy, had he pushed me in that other direction, it could have changed the course of my life because I respected him that much. But also he had that added weight of, if you don't do this, now God has invited you and you said no. Even if it's whether it's from God or it's from some guy you met in college that on a whim told you should take this job, right? Like there's so much pressure of like you said, the highest calling.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that without having studied to become a preacher or anything like that. The only difference I feel like between me and you is that like I never felt like that door opened up all the way. Otherwise I would have felt obligated to take it,
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd be saying no to God,
Well, and I mean, the other dynamic is that like it took me years to realize this, but like my dad went through the educational system in India, and my mom grew up in a very dysfunctional background. And so neither of them had kind of faced that like 18 huge potential, 99th percentile in the ACTs, good grades, could do anything.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
And so then when their son tells them, hey, I feel called to be a pastor, my mom's religious and she's like, great. Mm-hmm. And, there's a community value to that of like, he's answering the call, and all of that. And then my dad, I'm honestly a little surprised my dad was as supportive as he was, not because of the religious piece, but because of the financial piece.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised that he was not like, why don't you go get some other kind of degree first? And you can always go back to, I know a lot of people who will send their kid to a regular university first. Be like, if you still want to do it after 4 years, that's great. Go to seminary after.
Sure. Yeah.
And honestly, I probably endorse that path. I think that anybody should have a skill that's marketable because I remember we had a professor who told us that, if you're driving to church early in the morning, 7 o'clock, you stop at the gas station for some coffee or whatever, people will, if they know that you're a pastor, people will offer you a free cup of coffee, but you should never ask for it. That was the point of the lesson. And that's not the world that we graduated into.
Yeah.
These days it's like, if you're going to church and stop for the gas station for coffee or whatever, first of all, they're not going to offer it to you for free.
No.
Secondly, they might ask you, are you one of those churches that hates gay people?
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different world.
Yeah. It's not as like a universally respected profession. It's really more met with, I don't know, like almost caution or,
Are you one of the ones that hurts children or,
what are the rules to this interaction now? Cause there's a lot of variables at play that I didn't know going into this conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, it seemed like a path to belonging that I didn't know that I was hungry for, and ended up being completely wrong for me.
Yeah. Was your dad Hindu?
Yeah.
Practicing?
Okay. Still is.
What was I guess growing up, the dynamic was that?
Yeah. So Hinduism, I mean, as a lot of people will be broadly familiar with, there's like 400 million gods in Hinduism. But within Hinduism, there's essentially a few branches. I will probably butcher this for anybody who actually is deep into it, but my broad understanding of it is that there's there's Orthodox Hindu, which is a little funny because like with 400 million gods, like how truly Orthodox compared to like Orthodox Christianity. And then there is, I think it's liberal Hinduism, which is like a little more open, and then there's Reform, which is actually more liberal than liberal. If I got my labels right there, and don't come at me. Come at me in the comments. I don't care. And my dad's family is from that kind of like most open branch of Hinduism, and so it's kind of all of the. If you've ever heard kind of the New Age, like it's all water from the same pitcher being poured in different glasses kind of thing. that was his approach to it, and still is. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're trying to be a good person, and
I have a son that cares about doing the right thing, that wants to follow the path, follow God, do something respectful and honorable with his life. You know, great.
yep, yeah. So he was supportive. Even helped pay for college, like all that kind of stuff. Um, I honestly, now it's like I kind of wish. Yeah, I wish you would have challenged it, you know. Like, but again, not from the religious perspective, but just from the, is this going to be a way you can build a life?
Yeah.
Which I don't think is, it was never the right path for me.
Yeah. Well, you tried a few things, right? You became a pastor. Was it a worship pastor or a preaching pastor? Or?
Yeah. So my degree was technically in biblical communication, pastoring, preaching, and but I did get a minor in music, and so moved out to California, was a worship pastor for 9 months. Got fired from my first real job twice. That's how highly dysfunctional this church was.
Well, 9 months is enough time to make a baby.
I went to that church. I very much had I could save the world kind of mentality.
Sure.
This church had 7 worship pastors in 10 years, and all under the same senior pastor. 2 of those guys had cheated on their wives, and I wasn't even married, so I was like, well, I certainly can finish at least bottom 3.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it won't be the most bottom. And just found out this guy was like a crazy narcissist, and that word gets thrown around a lot, but in the interview process, church interviews are typically quite long. You fly out, you stay for a weekend. I was staying at the pastor's house, so never you're always being watched, kind of thing. And he told me at the end of the weekend, he said, "Okay, let's kind of go through how things went." He was like, "Everything went pretty well. The only thing is, I wish you'd been more, what's the word? Sycophantic." Do you know what that means? I'm like 22. I'm going, refresh my memory here. And he's like, just show that you wanted it more. Kiss up isn't quite the right word. It was pretty close to the right word.
Yeah, it sounds like it, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he really literally wanted a sycophant. He wanted somebody to just blow smoke up his ass. And I was like, yeah, this is not. So anyway, we ended up butting heads. I knew within 6 months that the job was doomed. I had started looking for new jobs, which is awful, right? You have one job of 6 months on your resume. That's going to get you nowhere.
Yeah.
And that was 2007. And so I got fired in May of the end of April 2008. And my wife and I got married the end of May 2008.
Oh boy.
So I started our marriage unemployed in the recession of 2008.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, the market bottomed.
That happened.
The market bottomed out December of 2007. Unemployment in Riverside was at 18%. I could not even get a job as a pizza driver. And so the beginning of our marriage was so dicey financially, but ministry was not. I had 7 jobs in 10 years in ministry. And the only ones that stuck were the ones that I created, being a photographer. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And you ended up coming back to Nebraska. You worked at a Christian college for a while?
Yeah, so right? I worked at my alma mater, that again doesn't exist anymore. But my dad had a major heart incident the year our daughter was born. And so we were actually living in Salt Lake City at the time, trying to do a church plant thing, again, trying to save the world. And my dad had heart surgery. We flew back with a 5-week-old in our arms, and my dad asked us to come back.
Wow.
And at that point I didn't have anything calling related, because we were sort of trying to get this church plant off the ground, but our funding had dried up. And
were you like the lead of the church plant? Okay.
Yeah. But it had split before we even got there.
Okay.
The church wanted kind of more of a franchise model, and we were like, in Salt Lake City, it's like 90% Mormon. Like, I don't think you can just go get a storefront and start holding worship services and be like, guys, come do this.
Yeah, they got they have other things kind of already set up there.
Yeah.
take
You're asking people to essentially betray their entire life and family and social structure to come hang out at your cool church because it has good coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know the first thing about doing things there. So we went in with a lot more like, hey, let's listen and see what people need kind of approach. And I understand that from our church's perspective, it's like that's very slow and hard to measure.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's evangelical world where everything operates so much like a business, then you can't chart a path to financial sustainability when you're there trying to figure out what people need.
Yeah, that same friend that told me not to go to Campus Crusade, he always had a line that like Campus Crusade is such a stats driven organization, and he would battle with that all the time, just like thinking about if I don't do X amount of things and show this many conversions or baptisms or whatever in my newsletters, then I can't feed my family. My support dries up because that's what people want on the, they want to support stats. They want to support progress or metrics or whatever it is. And just saying, I'm getting to know some people,
Which is funny, right? Because the opposite side of it would be so crass if you thought about it. Like, you get a bonus for having more baptisms or whatever. Like, you don't actually, there's no upside. There's only downside.
Yeah.
If you're not performing in a certain, and that's part of what I hated about it, was that you can always lose, you can never win. And it's like, cool. Well, my brain doesn't work like that. I don't know how to operate in that kind of world.
Well, I'm trying to remember the exact order. I've talked to Ben about this, but you and Ben worked together on a project when you're out there. And then ultimately one thing led to another and you became business partners, right?
Yeah. So college got acquired before it got shut down by Hope International University. And they're based out of California. They already had a huge comms team and everything. And so Ben and I had already been working together for a couple of years on projects. I hired him as a freelance designer right when Fruitful was starting. I think I was their first retainer. And Ben would make these little comments like, oh, I wish I had one of you for all of my projects. And I didn't know what it was because I'm not a project manager. I'm not somebody, I knew that my projects weren't better organized than everyone else's. They were fine. I mean, it's like I brought the goods to the table, but I didn't really know what he meant. But it was a lot about direction, about copywriting, about clarity of what this needed to be, vision for what the project needed to be. Our first project that we did together really set the standard for the kind of work that we were going to do. And it was, so, back in the day, you turn 17 or 16 or 17, and you start getting all the college mail, sometimes younger than that, even 14, 15. And you throw most of it away. It goes like in the recycle bin or whatever. And so, we were tasked with creating promotional material for the college. And I was like, what we should really do is like, we should just play on the fact that this is going to get thrown away anyway. And so in huge letters on the front of this brochure, it said, throw this away. And then a tiny asterisk that said, if you want to pay full price for college. And people will still reference this brochure. We're like coming on almost 15 years on from this now. And people will reference that still. And then that gave us the opportunity to also create an alumni magazine for the school and to start rehabbing its image as like a place that was good to be from, and that there was actually connection between all these disparate people from, it was a very small school, but everybody scatters to go be pastors across the country, across the world. We tried to start building some identity there, and it worked. I got an email one time that said, thanks for making this a good place to be from. And that meant the world to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it shut down.
So they got bought out first.
Okay.
And I got riffed because I was redundant. And so I actually had started a wedding photography business to make ends meet because I was terribly paid there. So I was 6 years into my career at that point, and I was making about 30 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. With 2 kids.
Wow.
And we were living in on-campus apartment housing. And so I started a wedding photography business to, for one, justify camera equipment purchases because I had kids and I wanted to take great photos of them because I've always loved photography. And then for another, just to like try to put any extra money in the coffers. So we started the wedding photography business, and it ended up being about 25% of my income the year that I got laid off. And so I looked at my wife, now pregnant with our third, and I said, hey, I flew 4,000 miles in 3 months at the end of 2014.
Shooting weddings?
No, this interviewing for other
Oh,
church jobs.
okay.
And all the churches, it was like the same thing at all the churches. It was a pastor in his 50s, kind of legacy shopping for, he knows it's the last lap. Church of about 2,500 needs a comms director. And I just like could barely get out of bed for it. I was just like, this guy's going to write a book about the Holy Spirit, or he's going to convince the church they need to build a bigger auditorium to reach more people.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally like the one of the two things that's going to happen. I'm just not interested at all.
Yeah.
And I think they could read it on all the interviews. I didn't get any offers.
You weren't sycophantic enough.
I didn't want any of the offers. And so I got home from that, and I was just like, hey, what if we take a bet on ourselves here? I did 25% of the work, or of our income, with 10% of the full-time effort. I think I could do it. And it's like, I can always go. There was a Starbucks that you could see from our bedroom window. I was like, I can always go apply there if it's not working. And I did end up applying to a Barnes & Noble and got the job, but I ended up turning it down because I was going to have to work weekends and I couldn't shoot weddings. And I was like, well, it's going to kill the golden goose if I do this. So we just took the bet, and that was end of 2014, beginning 2015. I've worked for myself ever since.
Wow.
And so Ben and I, part of that was the end of 2014 when some churches found out that I was available. Some local churches found out I was available as a comms director. I started having those conversations. But I mean, we're talking 7 jobs in 10 years. And I'm just like, guys, I'm so tired of everything lasting 18 months and then getting laid off, fired, whatever. Can I just do the work? Can I just do I really have to go here and stand next to you and go to the potlucks and all that kind of stuff and pretend that this is the place I'm going to be at forever and call you guys family and all that stuff when nobody's ever treated me like that?
Yep.
It's like they love you as long as you're there. I was like, can I just do the work? I was obviously a little nicer about it, but and a couple of churches said yes. And so I was like, cool, write half to me, write half to this guy, Ben, and I'll do all the strategy stuff and Ben will make it look good. That's the plan. And so it ended up being that within a year, I was carrying 50% of Ben's business.
Wow.
Fruitful's business. And so then we started having conversations about becoming partners. And by 2017, the paperwork was officially done that we became partners.
So your first, really the Fruitful design, I mean, as it exists, well, maybe not as it exists today, as it exists until recently.
Yeah.
It was, a lot of it was just doing that, right? Communications stuff for churches primarily, and then you sort of branching out to other industries, or?
Yeah, it's funny because we actually wound that down several years ago. And, the world changes a lot too in time. People start asking us to do more social media stuff and all that. And it's hard to stay an expert in those things, nor did I want to be.
Yeah.
And
that's a skill set that I have a hard time wrapping my mind around, because I feel like it's kind of like when you hear people talk about being an investment banker and you're like, what is it you actually do that's good for anything other than make money? And you're like, I make money? No. What is it that you do that's good for the world? But I make money. No, I mean, what is it that you do? That's how I feel about the social media expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on a whole tangent about social media, but the same year that we started, so 2017, when we started doing stuff together, no, it was before we actually partnered. Same year I started getting churches. A friend of mine who worked at a software company reached out and was like, hey, we saw some of the work that Ben did for Hardy Coffee and love that. And we got something we need some branding for. Would you come in? So we came in. It's a 70-year-old company that kind of had evolved into software and then was looking at kind of the next iteration of it. And they're like, this old brand might need to kind of die off, and we need something that it'll be a product brand for now, but could maybe replace the company brand eventually. It was fun. We ended up working for that company for years, and I mean, probably close to $1 million in business with that company.
Wow.
That we ended up doing. End of 2018, First National approached us. There was the research and development team there. It's called Innovation Disruption, but there was somebody there who had asked, who'd wanted something that didn't look like First National, and so we somebody on their team had said, "Oh, I met these guys for a different project. You should reach out to them." So First National reaches out to us, and we do the whole like, "Well, what's your budget?" We don't even know because it's like how much do the people in the tower have, and they're like, "Don't really worry about it. Just tell us what it's going to cost." And I was like, "Okay, well, so this is going nowhere,
Yeah.
And sure enough, we put a fair bid in front of them, and they accepted it. Ended up having to raise that bid at times because there's so many layers of approval and that kind of stuff that you when you're first starting to work with something that big, and ended up working with them for 5 or 6 years, and so churches actually became a very small part of what we did, even though it was our longest standing relationships at the time. These other things were just dwarfing. Corporate was dwarfing what we were doing in a nonprofit. Still had a lot of heart for a nonprofit, but it's all the same work,
Yeah.
It's like see the other people on the other side of your campaign as humans, respect what they need, and talk about that as opposed to talk about how freaking great you are.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, you know?
As somebody who's been, I was friends with Ben kind of for, I don't even know how long, probably close to 10 years. It's just crazy seeing like Fruitful Design is like, it started out, I remember going to the Fruitful Design office literally being like Ben's office with the Fruitful Design sticker on it. And then we would have band practice in the Fruitful Design office, and we just like, it kept on getting a bigger space for us to do band practicing. So it's growing.
His first office had a piano in it because he was doing piano lessons on Thursdays to supplement for the fact that the business wasn't, making enough money yet to support him and his little family.
Yeah. It was a full upright piano. I remember the day the piano left his office being like, wow, what is this, Ben? You don't do piano? I was like, well, I need the space.
Yep. I was, I think I was still a client of Ben's at the time, and I'd always bug him on Thursday and be like, dude, stop doing piano lessons. I need to talk to you. So, that didn't last long, thankfully. But yeah, Fruitful was about $250,000 a year when I started, and I grew it to about 1.1 million before we hired somebody else to take the lead, and then I was the managing partner again for the last few years, and then just stepped away.
Yeah, I mean, you had the cool downtown office.
Yeah, I took over Flywheel's old space. Yeah, that was very cool, very expensive. It's interesting. I've learned a lot about not trusting momentum. Momentum in business is almost like a drug. You keep chasing it, but I think it's the most predictable thing in the world that things will slow down eventually.
Yeah,
and always in ways that you'd never expect.
Yeah, because you guys had to scale up to meet that demand, and then when you scale up, now you have all this extra cost associated with it, with whether it be offices or employees or payroll or whatever it is. And then if a couple things happen, the momentum dies off, then now you're stuck with this huge overhead expense that you got to adjust to.
Well, I think for me, like one of the things that I learned from the whole experience that I would definitely do differently now and hope to do differently is I scaled it too fast. I graduating into the recession, getting fired into the recession, I ran hungry for almost 20 years, and so I said yes to as many things as I could. We grew from $250,000 to 1.1, only adding, I think, 2 staff members.
Wow.
It's not a good idea. I actually had a colleague call me out and be like, dude, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to kill your staff. And she was right.
Is that when you started getting involved in all the story brand things with?
Yeah, I got certified in story brand end of 2019. So we were last class, I think, right before the pandemic. And that really became my community through the pandemic. I was just like meeting these people. And it's funny because the software company that I worked with back in, it would have been 2015 or 16, before the StoryBrand book was even out. Donald Miller was doing webinars about this new thing that was coming. And I would sign up for the webinars and then not go to them. So I got the replay, and then I would watch the replay and pause it and take furious notes of about this system of making your customer the hero of the story, positioning yourself as the guide, taking them on a hero's journey. And so I was just doing it. And so the first meeting that I had with the software folks, I wrote the whole strategy up on the board of here's how you make your customer the hero. I think that's what got us the job.
Wow.
So I was practicing it well before it was available in the world to be a certified guide.
Well, and was that around the same time you're writing your own book, thinking about story structure and everything in that lens, or is it just yeah?
Yeah, I started. Yeah, it would have been right around the same time. I started, I think, in 2016. I think is what the earliest draft is, and yeah, it's funny. It cracks me up that I have no idea how to say that I'm interesting, but yeah, I did happen to write a book during all this as well.
Well, as somebody who now has written a book, it is funny how like you cross that milestone and then you realize, oh, and that thing happened. I guess it's like, I don't know. It didn't quite turn out how I thought it was. It was fun, but I don't know.
Yeah. I was humbled the other day. A local bookstore called and said, "Hey, can you come pick up your copies of your book?" And I was like, "Oh, you can keep them longer if you want to." They're like, "No, we need the space." And I was like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, I started that. I think it was beginning 2016, and I officially published it in the world 8 years later in 2014 or 2024.
I feel like when I wrote my book, a lot of it is actually you told me like a lot of resources like Story Grid and Hero's Journey and that stuff, and there's a lot of just understanding what is story, how does story work, and once you start thinking about those things and it starts percolating in the back of your mind, you start even seeing the world a little bit differently. Do you feel like that was like, was there a crossover between this creative effort and the business effort that's kind of going on at the same time, or?
Yeah, as much as I wish sometimes that I had a skill like being an investment banker or something, where it's just like, it's cut and dry that you follow the numbers and you will make money kind of thing. I think a lot of what drew me to ministry in the first place was the storytelling.
Sure.
The persuasion, and not in a bad way, not in a manipulative way, but I used to have this sign in my office when I was a pastor. This probably tells you everything you need to know about me being a pastor. It was a sign that somebody had drawn. It was a cartoon, said, "Never try to sell a meteor to a dinosaur. It wastes your time and annoys the dinosaur." And it's from an old proverb: is "Never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig." And but I love the dinosaur version because it's like, when you're trying to sell a meteor to a dinosaur, you're trying to sell it the thing that will kill it.
Yeah.
And in ministry, talk about like taking up your cross, right? It's like literally taking up the instrument of your own death. And there are a lot of beautiful things about death to self, of putting your own needs aside and focusing on the needs of others. It's one of the most psychologically classic ways of adding happiness to your life is worrying less about your own problems and worrying more about helping other people. And it makes you more grateful. It makes you more joyful. But I always felt like that's what ministry was in a lot of ways, was trying to sell people something that they definitely don't want, but do actually need. Mm-hmm. And the storytelling piece of it, the creative piece of it, was such a huge draw for me. And I think that if I had known more about other creative careers, I maybe wouldn't have ever gone into ministry. And the crossover between writing my own stuff and doing marketing for other people was, to me, it all kind of felt like the same thing. Even wedding photography, right, was about how do we tell the story of the day. I was not interested in being the most aesthetic wedding photographer. Like, there are people who really leaned into, I'll present you your photos on a flash drive in a burnt pine box with your name engraved on it, whatever. I was just like, I actually just, I want to, more like a photojournalist, to tell the story every day. And it's just something that I've always really naturally been inclined to. I think being half Indian and growing up in Nebraska, it was more natural to be an observer of a lot of things than it was to be a participant in them. And, because like we talk about like the Huskers victory and stuff. Like, I didn't feel like that was our team, like my team.
Yeah.
I felt like it was our state's team. But I felt like it was your guys' team.
Sure.
And I'm happy that you're happy, but sometimes a little annoyed how happy everybody was. But otherwise, like, it didn't feel like it was something that, like, oh, we did it.
Yeah.
And
which is like the whole thing, the draw of sports in the first place, is you feel like you're a part of something that you're clearly not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty obvious, replication of tribalism. But in a healthier way. It's like, we don't literally kill each other. We go into battle with rules and hopefully protective equipment, And so Story Brand, for me, it felt like a leveling up of the things that I was already doing.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun to be in that community. The book, I didn't know what it was when I started. I listened to this episode of This American Life that was about this place that does, you know, grief communities for kids who had lost, grief support for kids who had lost someone. And often it's a parent, like 80% of them, it's a parent. Or no, I think it's like 50% have lost a parent. About 80% of those have lost a dad. And I was just like, well, I mean, I had just had my kids, and I was feeling all the pressure of being a dad, especially when the previous 10 years had not been kind to our family. And just feeling like if I were gone now, what would happen? And so in the This American Life interview, there's this kid. They teach the kids like how to describe what happened to their parent, and they don't beat around the bush. Like they help kids understand that their parent is dead, because you can't grieve something you don't understand. And they have a lot of respect for the kids and their ability to understand. There used to be this myth that kids don't grieve, and really what it is that kids don't have the words to describe how they're feeling.
Sure.
And so there, in the interview, there's this kid who said, my dad shot his brains. And, you know, they teach you your brain's like a computer. So if you break your computer, it doesn't work anymore. And you need that. It's really important. And so obviously kind of an ineloquent way to say that your father had committed suicide and shot himself in the head. But it was that kid's way of understanding it. And there's just kind of this instant thing for me of what's going to happen to this kid? Who's he going to marry? Like with that kind of baggage, like, and then it was like, well, what if he married somebody from this counseling center or from the support center? And they don't like me to use the word counseling when I talk about them, because it's support, not strictly mental health counseling. And I was like, well, it'd probably be somebody who'd gone through something similar. And then you go, okay, well, whoa, could you survive that? Like, could a marriage survive both of you looking at each other every day going like, are you going to become your dad today? Are you going to become your dad today? And, but really that's like what we all do, right? You know, it's like our parents' flaws, all the things that have happened to us. That's what marriage actually is looking at each other going like, are you okay today? Are you like, are we going to make it through this? All of the pressures, all of the everything. Are the worst things about our past going to define us, or are we defining our own path? And so it was like I just started hearing the conversation, you know. And so, you know, the first line of the book is, the first thing you ever said to me was, my dad shot his brains. And it's like, okay, what fight would they have to be in for her to bring that up? You know, because it's not a thing of like, you left your socks outside the hamper, like, you know, your dad shot himself, you know. It's like, no, you wouldn't do that. So it's like, what did he do? And so then my brain just started turning, and I'm like driving in my car and I'm hearing conversations between the characters, and I'm going like, I think I probably need to start writing this down. So I start writing it down, and I'm 10,000 words in, and I go, I think this is a book. You know, like I wasn't 100% sure if I was writing a movie script or a book or anything, or if I was ever going to share it with anybody. And it was interesting because there's an F word on the first page, and coming from ministry, it didn't feel like I could do that. But it's like, okay, if that's inside of me and this is who I really am, how do I present myself to the world? And, you know, there's just like all this like wrestling of, what does this even mean? What is this? And so it was nice to be in relationship with StoryBrand and those things and understanding story structure more, but there was so much more work going on behind the scenes of like, who am I and what does this even mean for who I am?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say the F word on the front page. I remember reading your book and having this conversation in my mind. It's like, I knew who you were, but we weren't friends at that point. And as I mentioned several times now, like I knew Ben, your partner, very well. And so like in the back of my mind was thinking about writing a book, and I reached out to you just saying, hey, I think I might have even framed it, but I want to pitch you an idea. But really, I just wanted somebody to talk to about writing a book, because I had no idea what to do. And really, that's the conversation that I wanted to have and that we ultimately had was, hey, you did this thing that I want to do. How does this even work? What do I do?
Yeah.
That was kind of the start of our relationship or in our friendship. But I remember thinking while I was writing your book, like, who is this guy? Like, I
Yeah.
knew you had this pastor background or whatever. I knew Ben, and knowing Ben, I've always felt like I could be myself, but at the same time, I also know like part of my relationship with Ben feels like I'm trying to like kind of push him like a little bit, kind of make him a little uncomfortable, see how far I can, bend but not break him. Putting the explicit rating on his podcast episode, but nobody else's. And that's part of the fun of that relationship. I'm like, I didn't know, I didn't know you. I didn't know if, and it really was reading your book and seeing an F-bomb on the front page and going, oh, I think I get this guy. Like, I think I'm one of him.
Well, you know what's funny too is that I guess bringing it somewhat full circle, it didn't mean to, is that was an Aaron Sorkin thing.
Yeah.
Was I had taken Aaron Sorkin's master class.
Yeah, excellent. I've done that as well. Yeah.
And he talks so much about making language feel natural, making dialogue feel natural.
Yeah.
And people don't talk the way that people write.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice in my book, there's a lot of sentences that get started but not finished.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because people jump in and finish the sentence, or they go. My wife and I had a conversation in the car the other day. It was on speakerphone, and or it was playing through the car. And my daughter was sitting next to me. My wife was like, "Hey, where are you?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm on such and such street." And she goes, "Okay, so you're almost home?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, I'm staying at work for a little bit." I was like, "Oh, do you need me to put the thing on the?" She goes, "Yeah, that's why I called." And it's like, "Okay, love you, bye," kind of thing. And my daughter goes, "That conversation didn't make any sense." I was like, "Oh, it did to us. We had the conversation earlier that somebody was picking up something off the front porch." Like I knew where the conversation was going. So the Newsroom, one of Aaron Sorkin's shows, they use the F word liberally, and in this situation, literally the most heightened fight of this couple's life, are they gonna like say frick?
Yeah.
Are they gonna say darn?
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're going to use adult language because they're adults in a heated situation. And you'll even notice that if you read the book and care this much, you'll notice that Gabe swears a lot, but he only swears at Jenny one time the entire book. And is when it's kind of in the like all is lost moment of like they may not make it through this. That was a very purposeful choice.
Sure.
That he may be angry and bitter about a lot of things in his life, but his feelings towards his wife, it's the one thing he won't breach is disrespecting her in that way. But there's also this barrier for him of like not allowing himself to be that angry, not having enough trust in that relationship to have the raw emotion with her and trust her with it and be able to work through it. That it's weirdly both a low point and a turning point for him to finally swear at her, towards her. All of that was incredibly intentional.
Well, I think like that's even part of the reason why I think like quote unquote Christian, I'm doing air quotes in my finger, Christian media a lot of times failed. I mean, like the movies like God Is Not Dead or whatever these Christian produced things are. I just remember watching this and they feel so inauthentic. Like even if, put theology aside, whatever it is, just the entire approach to it just feels like you are in an alternate universe, like an alternate reality. Like people don't act like that. People don't like, I think it is the God Is Not Dead movie where they have this scene where a car's not starting and they go, hold on, let's pray. And they pray. And then all of a sudden the car starts and they go, and there's like, whatever the musical score changes. And there's like, see, God's watching. We're like, that just doesn't happen. Like, I don't care if your theology says God can or cannot intervene in that way. That's not the way we exist in this reality. Right. And, frick and darn and whatever, like, of course that's not.
Well, and even if it does happen, you can't discount the fact that like maybe just let the car rest long enough that the carburetor's not full. Or I don't know much about cars, but it's like that maybe it just needed that moment.
Clearly, you can't actually say this is a proof of God's, a miracle of God's existence or caring about your life because your car started.
Well, and the other side of it too is like, okay, even if we grant all the way up to that he did do that, then you have to contend with like, what about all the people that he doesn't do that for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does he love you more, or like was it just what you needed at the time or whatever? But I remember when I was in ministry, it was one of my first jobs. There was a piano player at the church who wasn't supposed to be there one Sunday, and she was supposed to be out of town for work. And she comes to, I get to the church, and we're going to start rehearsal at 7:30 or something like that in the morning. And she's there. I was like, oh, hey, I didn't think you were going to be here. And she goes, oh, it was such a God thing.
That was always my least favorite start to any conversation.
My coworker that I was supposed to go with was in Chicago last week, and they got mugged, and somebody stole all their ID, so they can fly this weekend, so we can't go. And I was like, I don't think that God had this poor woman be assaulted so that you could be in my church band. Like, I don't think that's probably how this works.
If it is, like, I mean, I don't know, man. That I don't know what to do with that theology if that is exactly the way that God worked in that moment.
My own personal brute squad. You are the brute squad.
I think one of my favorite, in my book, I did a beta read, and where you send it off to a bunch of people. In my case, I sent it to a bunch of people that I didn't know. I worked with somebody that had her own mailing list and got some feedback back.
I think that's brilliant, by the way. I should have done that.
Yeah, and I thought it was really helpful. There's things I definitely, I think process-wise, I might do differently in the next book. Anyways, one of my favorite pieces of feedback, though, was in my book, there's lots of swearing, but it was something like, somebody said, I don't know what to do with C.S. Lewis quotes and F-bombs or something like. And for me, I went, that's exactly what I want. Like, I want that tension, right? Like, and it's
like me either.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like, that's welcome to my world. Like, there's something about C.S. Lewis that even as right now where I'm at in life, I don't agree with him as much as I used to. But at one point in life, he was my guy. I still, to this day, I have a shrine in behind us in my bookshelf because he was like the most influential thinker on my worldview. And now where I'm at in life, I don't actually agree with a lot of where he comes down on stuff anymore. And that's evolved. I'm using the word evolved very purposely here. It's changed, right? But at the same time, like, I still think that the things that he pointed out and those observation stuff are as brilliant now as they were back then. Yeah. But maybe my frame's a little bit different. Maybe I've lived a different way had different experiences in life where it's like, it didn't actually play out that way. Maybe this concept worked better in theory than it did in reality once I lived, whatever it was. But that doesn't take away the fact that that frame of mind was a hugely influential thing. And part of the book is me coming of age, wrestling with that as a high schooler. And the wrestling hasn't stopped, right? It just looks differently now. And so, I swear a lot as a person, and, I'd swear to my wife, and but my wife, I don't swear at her. At least
I was gonna say there's such a difference, though, like swearing around and swearing at.
Yeah. So, anyways, and I think it was I think one of the first conversations I had with one of my editors was like, this is not a Christian book. I would never want to market my book as a Christian book ever, because it's not that. In that category, Christian is a marketing term. It's an adjective. I think there's a Derek Webb quote that he would always say, like, Christian, unless applied to a person, is just marketing language.
Yeah, we started a coffee shop here in Omaha through our church back in 2003 or 4, and people would come in and be like, well, is this a Christian coffee shop? And we were just like, we're not aware of any way in which coffee can be made Christian. I mean, you do baptize it, but it's like,
what even is that? Yeah.
Somebody's like, you should have more Bibles here if this is a Christian coffee shop. And it's like, well, we're people of faith who started a coffee shop, and we can let that be whatever that is.
You want to bring a Bible, bring a Bible. You don't want to bring a Bible, don't bring a Bible. Yeah.
One of my favorite C.S. Lewis quotes that still is actually much more relevant now than it used to be. And everybody falsely attributes C.S. Lewis, so I hope I'm not contributing to that tradition. But it's something to the effect of how tediously similar are all the tyrants, and how gloriously different are all the saints. Mm-hmm. And in this day and age where our kids are watching more people act like tyrants, I find it very helpful to go, but look, they're all the same.
Yeah. Well, your point earlier about that word narcissist gets thrown around a lot. Well, it's not because they're not narcissists, right? Like listening to the Mark Driscoll Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. Well, about Mark Driscoll Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast, and like there's like a whole half of an episode talking about the reason why. Maybe, I don't know, but there's this cultural moment where you go, how does a guy like Mark Driscoll come to power? at the same time as a guy like Donald Trump, right? Like there's something about that
Yeah,
personality that like that personality, whatever it is, and the way that we view ourselves, we were drawn to that right now in the similar vein. You
Can I just make I haven't actually shared this publicly, but I think Americans love it, actually.
I think that it fills something in them. I don't know.
I think we have loved snake oil from the beginning.
Yeah.
If you think about P.T. Barnum.
Sure.
Think about even Steve Jobs' iPhone launch that they did, the first one. They had to have 7 iPhones because they could not get one iPhone to do all the things that they demonstrated without the iPhone crashing.
Sure. Yeah.
And so there were 7 different ones that only were only like set up to do one of the functions that the iPhone did, because switching between it was crashing the iPhone up to the day of the launch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you want to go all the way back to the beginning, so there's this thing called the explorer gene that people have, and it makes you like want to wander. It's wanderlust, as we would understand, can actually be genetic. It's also tied to ADHD, a number of other things. And if you think about the character of the people who would come here seeking a better life.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the people who were happy or even just complacent or even willing to suffer, to knuckle under whatever's happening in their other countries, versus the people who go, there's got to be something else better out there.
And I'm going to uproot everything about my life and who I am and my family, legacy, and everything
for
whatever it is. Yep.
To cross the ocean on a boat where most people die.
Yeah. To settle someplace where most people are going to die.
To settle places where there's no houses.
Yeah.
That's
got to be better than whatever this is. And even though I know what this is, that something else is better than the whatever this is. Yeah.
The wild belief that is.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And then passing that down for generations, but not only passing that down, we're the world's repository for people who still believe that.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's really worked, right? But I think that the downside of that is that we are always drawn to the false positive version of that.
Sure.
Of the snake oil salesman. Gosh, you could just go down the line of things that we fall for, right? Like the satanic panic in the 80s, essential oils, like all of those things, like we want them to be true.
Yeah.
Cigarettes even were marketed as having health benefits. We want it to be true. And in some ways that's an incredibly beautiful quality in people. But it also leaves us prey to that. And I think that especially as people are hungry and desperate for change, because like those guys rose at the same time as Barack Obama as well.
Yeah.
When people are hungry and desperate for change, especially in the life cycle of a country where, England, the UK, they instituted universal healthcare right after World War II. I think it was 1947 or so that they did. We didn't take that lesson away from World War. We didn't take the lesson away of like, hey, all this collective effort that's really worked to make us powerful in the world and to help us accomplish things that we never thought was possible. We should keep going with that.
Yeah.
No, instead we did little bits of it, the GI Bill, that kind of thing, but we didn't take the same lessons away from World War II that everybody else was taking. And so, 50 years later, 60 years later, post Reagan and the trickle-down economics and all that kind of stuff, and we're starting to look for saviors.
The other thing that's unique about post-World War II is instead of not taking those lessons, we almost became more polarized in our own thing because we started fighting a Cold War. It became about ideology, right? It was everything about this other thing, the Soviet Union, communism, whatever. We are not that. And we have to be not only like, we have to have witch trials, McCarthyism, witch trials to find those people that believe these other things, cast them out, not have a dialogue, not debate, not have a constitutional convention to amend in the things that we can finally say aren't actually working, slaves being 3/5 of a person, whatever it is, right? We're just going to take it for granted that we got it right. They got it wrong, and to hell with them. And, and we had, a Cold War over it where we thought we would blow the world up 7 times over or whatever it was, with all the nuclear warheads there. Because I think we didn't allow ourselves the chance to learn those lessons because we jumped into some new conflict.
Well, because what we learned in some ways was the Teddy Roosevelt lesson of carry a big stick.
Yeah.
I don't even know about the speak softly part.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I've never seen him naked.
And again, again, there's this another West Wing reference for you is they talk about the language on the back of the dollar bill where it's got the triangle or the pyramid, and it's and it says Annuit Coeptes, which means he, God, favors our undertaking. Like he's on our side. And when you win a world war, then
not only won it, the U.S. was the savior.
Yes,
the savior. We entered the war and saved it. Otherwise, we'd all be, all of Europe would be Nazi Germany now.
Which is funny because now knowing, like the Bletchley Park files being declassified and knowing the huge role that Alan Turing played in cracking Enigma and why that actually maybe was the real turning of the tide of the war. It's like, but the mythology that we took away from
for sure
was very much that we won all of it because God was on our side.
Yeah.
And so therefore every war that you go into, everything that you do is blessed by him. How could it not be?
Yeah.
And then we revise our history so that things like Vietnam, those types of things that weren't successful, we go, well, that wasn't really a war, that was a police action in the world. We were just going and cleaning things up somewhere, and that wasn't really our problem. We shouldn't have been there anyway. We almost need that story of the more powerful that you are, the strong man thing that Driscoll or Trump represents. That might makes right thing. It will be right again. We just got to find the right one.
It's almost like for a culture that has a culture, country, whatever it is, civilization has a very, in the grand scheme of things, very short history.
Yeah.
That's the thing that binds it together. You know, we are right. We started democracy because nobody else was doing democracy the way that we were going to do it. We might have read a bunch of smart people and wrote about it in a theoretical sense about in Europe, but now we're the ones that are actually going to do it. And damn it, we got it right. Yeah. And that really, I think, to your point, that is like, if you don't have generations of, dynasty, all the Chinese dynasties and legacies and emperors or whatever saying this is our history. If your history is just we're the ones that got it right, then you got to continue to being right. Otherwise, who are you?
Yeah, you don't have Jefferson's great grandson out there, as a generational member of parliament or something going like, guys, we got to stick to the founding documents. We got to stick to the founding principles, and instead we're left with kind of a goldfish type memory to go, well, what's the last thing we did? Did that work?
Well, on that note, I think we should probably spend some time if you want to talk. So you're doing a lot of new stuff. I wrote down you're the keynote speaker at On Brand 2026 conference for the American Advertising Federation Nebraska. Yeah. You're starting a new, well, not really a new endeavor, kind of doing the thing that you've been doing for a while in a slightly different way.
That's an evolution of it,
Lulla Consulting. So what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, people often ask if I have a new book coming, and my answer is like, I don't have time, at the moment. So no, I've chosen to focus on, building this new consulting business, and I'm working on being trained in a framework that helps people have more productive relationships at work. Okay. And how to manage change a lot better than they do. I have a former client, or I guess still a client, who introduced me to this 10 years ago. And about a year ago, we started having conversations about whether or not that would be a good fit for me. And because, kind of what I'm seeing is that the world has changed in such a way where in marketing, I really hated when Fruitful would get pigeonholed as marketing, because we never claimed to be, but sometimes the market defines.
Well, it's always fruitful design and strategy, right? Yeah, that was how you defined yourself.
Yeah, but it's hard to know where's the line end of strategy. And so in the last few years, especially as AI and social algorithms have become more adversarial to small businesses, and it's a lot more pay to play with ads and those types of things, clients have they come more and more desperate to know what the magic bullet is, what the silver bullet is for being seen out in the world. And I wish I knew the answer. I mean, I would use it for myself. Yeah. And I find that the best way to make money on the internet is to help people how to make money on the internet. It doesn't have to work. But it's the best way to make money on the internet. So I'm always just so wary for people when they're like, tell me the exact right answer. And it's like, oh no, that's not a thing that typically works. Yeah. But in this new role, I am really kind of, in some ways, going back to where I came from, not in ministry per se, but in the like, how can I just help people? I can just help people,
Mhm.
you know? And so many things that I have done through my work with Fruitful and before that, I use the phrase, it's the tail that wags the dog, you know, because you come thinking that it's about marketing, but it's actually about clarity. It's
Mhm.
about knowing whether or not your product is positioned correctly. It's, and a lot of times, how to communicate with your boss. Part of what we were doing at First National was like how to write emails upwards. You know, how do
Sure.
I make sure this project is continuing to be funded for the next 2 years? And really, I'm just more interested in helping people now get clarity on, you know, sometimes it's their messaging, but other times it's, what do I do in this thing? I've also worked with a couple of people who have inherited, you know, some money and needed to sort through like, what do I do with all this? What's the point of having all this, and what does my version of this look like?
Sure.
Yeah, it's I'm still defining it
Yeah.
to a certain degree, but really it's anybody who needs to go up and have a 10,000 foot level discussion, that's not 30,000 foot. It's not the, you know, let's get really erudite and, you know, talk about philosophically what this means. But if you're just feeling stuck,
Yeah.
whether it's in a relationship at work or in how to talk to your customers in a world with AI and weird economy and all that kind of tariffs, all that kind of stuff, or if you need some life direction or business direction stuff that's like, hey, this circumstance has changed from where we thought we were going to be, then how do I handle that? So one of my favorite clients started with them asking, hey, can I just rent your brain for an hour? And it's like, yes, absolutely. That's what I would love to do for people.
So if they want to rent your brain,
Yeah.
Lulla Consulting.
Yeah, lullaconsulting.com. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Raj, it's been a blast. Always fun talking to you. I feel like every time that I talk to you, I always talk to you longer than I think, and I go different directions than I thought we would go, and I always have a good time. So thank you for that. And yeah, we'll onward. I don't know. I never know how to end a conversation.
Yeah. And you can also check out The Caring House, which is my book. I think there's still some copies on Amazon. There's certainly the Kindle copies, or you can just send me a message. I'm not that popular. You can, I will drive one to your house if it's in a tri-state area.
All right. Thanks, Raj.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Interesting People is produced by Chris Beatty in his basement. Thank you to Raj Lulla for being such a fun person to talk to. Check out his book, The Caring House, and check out his website, lullaconsulting.com. As we left my house, I told Raj that I probably needed to rent his brain myself to figure out just what it is I'm doing with all this. I have a feeling he could probably figure it out. Signing off from the greatest city on earth, Omaha, Nebraska.